Okay, let's unpack this. You may be thinking about navigating something that, well, feels inherently complex, right?
Okay.
Securing residency in another country, maybe through investment.
Uh-huh.
Today, we're doing a deep dive into the Greece Golden Visa, and we're using source material provided by Ayland. They position themselves as a Golden Visa partner and relocation guide.
That's right. So this deep dive, it's really built around exploring Aylin's specific approach to the whole Greece Golden Visa process,
Hmm.
all based on their material. The author is Dr. Pooyan Ghamari, who's noted as a Swiss economist and the founder of the Ayland platform.
Right. And our mission here, for you listening, is pretty clear. We want to understand exactly what Ayland is offering you if you're considering this, as a potential service provider on this journey.
Hmm.
Their material, it definitely makes it sound like they go way beyond just, finding a property.
Oh, absolutely.
So we're going to try and extract the key insights, the benefits they state, and really get a handle on how they frame this whole complex process. Looking at the strategic, the legal, the financial angles they bring up.
Absolutely. And, the source material really jumps right in. It makes the point immediately that applying for a golden visa, it's not just about buying some real estate.
Yeah.
It's presented as this really significant decision.
Mhm.
You've got legal stuff, financial planning, strategic thinking, all impacting your future, your family's future.
Mm-hmm.
And Allen is positioned here, well, not just as a real estate agent, but more like a full-spectrum residency
Oh, yeah.
and relocation partner from start to finish. That's their term.
Full spectrum.
Yeah.
Okay, that sounds like a pretty big promise. So what does that actually look like, this comprehensive support, according to their material? They lay out a sort of structured sequence, right? A series of steps.
They do, yeah. They detail support across 10 distinct areas. It naturally starts with property, but they really emphasize finding the right property for your specific goals.
Not just any property that happens to be for sale.
Exactly, not just any property.
And this is where they mention having a curated list and access to what off-market listings vetted by experts.
Mm-hmm.
What caught my eye was their focus on properties in those 250,000 zones, places they describe as potentially convertible or restorable or rental ready.
It sounds like they're actively trying to steer you away from what they call tourist traps.
Yeah, or overpriced investments. That's the phrase they use.
Right.
Yes, the goal they present is securing smart real estate, something that actually lines up with what you want to achieve, whether that's just getting the residency or maybe generating some passive income or thinking about resale value down the line.
Okay.
But the material, it quickly moves beyond just the building itself into the really critical legal aspects.
Right, the legal side. Powered by their law office partners, it says. So they connect you with licensed Greek law offices. I mean, that feels like a non-negotiable for this kind of big international investment. It absolutely is. And this is where they highlight the crucial due diligence checks they say they perform on every single property.
Okay, like what specifically?
Well, they list things like verifying the ownership status, title verification, basically,
Yeah.
checking who legally owns it and if there are any, claims or liens against it,
Mm-hmm.
confirming the zoning and usage rights, and making absolutely sure the property is eligible for the Golden Visa program's requirements. They say they handle the contract review, setting up a tax file number for you in Greece, the whole public notary process.
So ensuring everything's compliant.
Yeah. Their stated goal is making sure every step is compliant, every signature is protected. They want to identify problems before they actually arise.
That proactive approach makes a lot of sense, especially when you're dealing with unfamiliar legal systems. And they flag another important step early on for protecting your investment, getting an independent property evaluation.
Yes, this is a point the source material really emphasizes. They bring in independent evaluators completely separate to assess the property's real market value.
Based on its specific location and condition.
Exactly, and then compare that to the asking price. And they make a pretty significant claim here.
Yeah.
They say that this step, just this one step alone, can potentially save you 50,000 euro or even more.
Wow.
And safeguard your entire strategy, they say.
Potentially saving 50 grand or more just from evaluation on, let's say, a 250,000 minimum investment. That's a huge chunk.
It's substantial, yeah.
It definitely highlights the value they're placing on independent checks rather than just, taking the seller's price at face value.
Okay, so you've potentially found the right property. They've handled the legal checks, verified the value independently. What's the next hurdle they say they help you clear?
Documentation and compliance. This is getting into preparing all the necessary KYC, that's Know Your Customer, and AML, anti-money laundering documents.
Standard stuff for international finance these days.
Pretty much. Think of these as the standard international checks. They verify who you are, where your investment funds are actually coming from, all according to European regulations.
So this involves compiling things like proof of income sources, passport files, family IDs, various declarations. They mention it's all translated, notarized, and then cross-checked by lawyers.
Okay.
Their phrasing here is quite confident. You're always ready to pass any compliance check seamlessly.
Yeah, compliance is definitely not a step you want to stumble on. Getting that wrong could cause major delays or, even bigger issues. So after all the documents are sorted, they move on to the practical financial setup, getting a bank account in Greece.
Exactly. They assist with establishing either a personal or a business bank account, depending what you need. They mention options like remote pre-approval, or they can assist you in person, or maybe via power of attorney if you can't be there.
Okay.
And this is presented as, well, a crucial step for managing your finances smoothly, whether it's for the initial investment transfer, maybe collecting rental income later, or facilitating any future business activities you might plan in Europe.
Which naturally leads right into the actual property transfer itself.
Precisely. Step 6 is facilitating the seamless property transfer and the notary signing. They say they coordinate the transfer of funds through the proper legal channels, the formal signing with a certified public notary that's the official who actually validates the property sale in Greece.
Right, the official stamp.
Yeah. And then registration at the Greek Land Registry. This is the public government record where your ownership gets officially logged, making it legally binding.
So the property is registered in your name or maybe your company's name.
Based on legal advice, yes.
Yeah.
And this is the point where you officially own the asset within Europe.
Okay. So after navigating property selection, legal review, independent valuation, documentation, banking, and the final purchase, now we get to the core element for the residency itself, the immigration file.
That's step 7, handling the immigration file. And a really key point they highlight here is that this includes the entire family.
Ah, that's important.
Very. The material specifically mentions the main investor, their spouse, any children under 21, and even the parents of the main investor and spouse. All included in the single application file.
All under one umbrella.
Exactly. They say they prepare the entire file, submit it through all the official channels, and manage things like booking biometric appointments, the actual issuance of the residence permits, and then any subsequent renewals down the line. The tagline they use for this step is pretty powerful. Multiple generations, one investment, one process.
Including the whole family like that under one application. That's a significant benefit for a lot of people looking at these kinds of programs. It really simplifies what could otherwise be, several complex, separate processes.
Absolutely.
And importantly, they explicitly state their support doesn't just stop once the golden visa is approved.
No, definitely not. Step 8 is all about post-residency support in Greece. This moves into actual relocation assistance.
Like settling in.
Yeah, practical stuff. Finding local services, maybe help with schools if you have kids, setting up utilities, mobile phone contracts, navigating medical insurance and registration. It's framed as support for helping you actually adapt to potentially living in Greece.
Right.
They emphasize, we're still here after the paperwork is done. It really feels like a shift from just the transaction to the actual, transition of life.
That focus on transition rather than just transactions seems to be a recurring theme in their material, doesn't it?
It really does.
Yep.
And they also offer optional services if you plan to use the property or your new residency status for more than just living there yourself.
Oh, okay. Well, like what?
Yes. Step 9 covers property management and rental setup. So if you're not planning to live in the property full-time, or maybe you bought it specifically as an investment to generate income, they offer to manage it. Short-term rentals, long-term rentals, handle bookings, maintenance, screen tenants, collect the income directly into your Greek bank account.
Making it a passive income stream.
That's the idea presented, yeah.
Yeah.
Your investment property can become a source of passive income, managed for you.
And finally, what about using the residency for business?
That's step 10, support for starting a business in Greece, or potentially elsewhere in the EU, using your Greek residency as a base.
Okay.
They offer assistance with things like business incorporation, getting the right licenses, finding suitable office or retail space, getting the necessary tax ID and VAT registration that's value-added tax, crucial for operating a business and invoicing in Europe.
Right. Essential for trade.
And connecting you with local professionals like accountants and others you might need. It's pitched as potentially transforming your European residency into a real business platform.
So looking at those 10 steps altogether, it definitely paints a picture of a service designed to manage a really wide scope of activities, far beyond just the initial property purchase.
It does.
And they actually have a whole section specifically titled, Why Ayland? Because we solve every problem before it starts.
Right. This section is where they explicitly try to connect common potential challenges, things that often trip up golden visa applicants, with how their specific services are designed to address them proactively.
Okay, so what kind of problems are they talking about?
Well, they claim to tackle the risk of buying overpriced properties through that independent evaluation step we talked about.
The potential 50K saving.
Exactly. Legal risks, they say, are mitigated via their partner law office and that robust due diligence process. Banking difficulties, handled with their direct setup support. The risk of the immigration application actually being rejected, addressed through their stringent KYCML checks and careful application process.
Okay.
They even mention potential renovation risks if you buy a property needing work, saying that's addressed with architectural advisory support.
And they also claim to address the challenges after you get the visa.
Yes, with that ongoing relocation support and the optional property management, they also mention sorting out any confusion around including family members with what they call a legal family inclusion plan.
Right.
And considering your investment exit strategy, whether that's planning for resale later or setting up for ongoing rental income, they say they factor that in from day one through planning. It definitely positions them as trying to be highly proactive in anticipating issues.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
And this proactive stance, it's explicitly linked to their overarching philosophy presented in the source material. They state very clearly, we think in terms of legacy, not commission.
Legacy, not commission. Okay.
Yeah. They clarify they aren't just a real estate agency, but frame themselves as a residency and wealth mobility partner. There's a quote from Dr. Ghamari that really seems to encapsulate this whole idea. Residency isn't a transaction. It's a transition. We make it structured, clean, and life-changing.
That phrase, residency isn't a transaction, it's a transition, that really feels like the core takeaway from their material, doesn't it?
I think so, yeah.
It frames the whole service not just as, a way to get a visa, but as comprehensive support for a major life change, gaining the ability to live in or access Europe freely.
Exactly. Their stated value proposition, just based purely on the source material we're looking at, is providing this really comprehensive step-by-step guidance. Starting from finding the right property, performing due diligence that they claim can lead to significant savings.
The 50K plus number again?
Right. Then through all the essential legal, financial, and immigration steps, making sure to include the entire family. And continuing with post-residency services and those optional business or property management supports if you need them. It's really about presenting a pathway that's designed to be smooth, strategically sound, and focused on the long term.
Right. The emphasis really seems to be on that thorough due diligence, the specific potential cost savings they mentioned, the inclusion of the whole family unit, and guiding you through every single stage, positioning it all as part of building a long-term legacy.
And the source material kind of wraps up by calling ALand where strategy meets simplicity, where your second life begins. It just reinforces that strategic long-term view and the idea that this isn't just an investment on paper. It's potentially a gateway to a completely new life or at least significantly expanded opportunities within Europe.
Okay, so we've unpacked what the source material presents about ALand's offering for the Greece Golden Visa process. They clearly position themselves as that full-spectrum partner, handling everything from selecting and verifying the right property, navigating all those complex legal, financial, immigration steps, including the whole family, and providing support after residency is granted, even offering optional business and property management services. Their claimed value really seems to lie in being highly proactive, identifying and solving potential problems up front.
Yeah, that proactive element is key to their pitch.
Those specific due diligence steps, like the independent valuation, which they say can lead to significant cost savings, and fundamentally reframing the entire process as a transition towards a long-term legacy rather than just a simple transaction.
That distillation of their stated comprehensive approach, yeah, that covers the key points from the source material we reviewed.
And this brings us right back to that central idea from the material, that residency isn't merely a transaction, but actually a profound transition to what they call a second life in Europe. And They argue it requires this kind of full spectrum partner. It really makes you pause and think, doesn't it? What does it truly mean to be prepared for such a significant transition?
Yeah, it's a big question.
I mean, does simply completing the necessary steps, ticking all the boxes, guarantee success in actually building that second life? Or does successfully making that transition truly require the kind of integrated long-term support and that focus on proactive problem solving that's described in this source material?
It's something to consider.
What aspects of that transition, beyond just getting the initial visa approval, are actually the most critical factors for long-term success, for well-being in a completely new environment? Definitely something to really think about if you're considering such a journey.